Hi, my name is Wade, and I will be your instructor for this course. Before we dive into the course, though, I want to give you a bit of background about myself. Um, I started out my career as a game developer working on console games like PlayStation 2 and things like that. Now, at the time, online wasn't a really big component, so there wasn't a lot of need for reactive architecture. Of course, the way that games have evolved now, online is a huge component, and reactive systems are far more important in that industry. But at the time that I was there, they weren't. I moved, though, from there to a real estate company. And with the real estate company, that's when I started to really focus in on what would eventually become reactive architecture. So with the real estate company, we had a fairly significant amount of data that we had to process. We had to expose that data to a large number of users. And that data had to go through a fairly complex pipeline that needed to be robust and resilient to failures. Now, we started building with microservices at that point. And when I look back on that, I realized that what we were trying to do is we were trying to build a reactive architecture. Of course, the term reactive hadn't developed at that point, and so I wasn't able to call it a reactive architecture. But again, looking back in hindsight, I realized that's what we were trying to do. Of course, because reactive architecture wasn't really a word at the time, there wasn't a lot of literature around how to do it. And so we had to make a lot of mistakes and figure things out on our own. What I hope to do with this course is I hope to save you some of that trouble. I hope to introduce you to the concepts so that you know what to look for and you know what not to do maybe and what to do properly so that ideally you'll be able to go through this path without going through all the struggles that I had to. Now, this is just one course in the Lightbend Reactive Architecture training path. So if you are interested in reactive architecture and you want to go deep on it, then I would highly recommend you take a look at the other courses in the training path as well, because they will help you along your journey. Now, after the real estate company, I moved on to a company called Lightbend. And if you're not familiar with Lightbend, Lightbend is very focused on reactive architecture. Not only do we have members of our team who were deeply involved in authoring the Reactive Manifesto, but we also host things like the Reactive Summit every year, and we write a lot of books, a lot of blog posts about the topic of reactive. So again, if you're interested in reactive and you want to dive deep on it, Lightbend is a good place to start for that. So that gives you a brief introduction of myself and Lightbend. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the course, and I'm going to teach you about what it is to build a reactive microservice.